Dr. Vince here with Leone Consulting. Happy holidays. Today we're going to go over 12 ways to grow your practice in 2019. And I'm going to do a post a day for the next 12 days so that we can go over each of these initiatives to grow your practice. And then at the end, we'll provide a PDF of everything so that you can have it as a reference guide. So let's talk over 12 strategic ways to reach your practice goals, right? Without messing up what's already working, without adding too much to any one doctor's plate or any staff member's plate, while continuing to focus on what you do really well, improving patient experience, and growing your practice reputation within the community, okay? So now a quick note, when I work with clinics that do that do more niche type stuff like neuropathy, stem cell, decompression, these case fees are typically anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. So we're not using a broadcast approach. In other words, I'm not recommending TV or radio and some of these approaches because they don't really make sense for a typical chiropractic office that's doing kind of chiro and rehab and kind of focusing more on volume. So just quick thought on that, or note on that. Next, so number one, we have to establish our target goals and the stats that we want to track. Okay, so we have to take this is, obviously an awesome time, right? End of 2018. We have to look at what was 2018 like? What worked? What did not work? What went well? What did not go well? And write it down, right? Because we need to identify where we are at in terms of our production and practice, and then where do we want to go? And a lot of doctors say, hey, what type of goals should I set? 3 months, whatever, 1 year, 5 year, 10 year. 12-month goals is, in my experience, the best kind of time frame because it's close enough to that we can get excited if we hit it. But it gives us enough time to actually accomplish something. If you set 90-day goals, it's tough. Really tough to really accomplish anything of note within 90 days in terms of practice, right? So I like 12-month goals. So then we want to figure out, hey, goals and then stats. So goals, revenue, new patients. If we're just talking practice, those are the two big ones, right? Revenue and new patients. If I'm at $20,000 a month in revenue now, where do I want to be in 12 months? So now when we're under, say, 30 grand per month in terms of revenue, getting significant gains, in other words, going from 20 to 30 or 20 to 40 is totally doable within 12 months. So if you're at that range, if you're at 20 or below, then I would say dream big, double the practice. If you're at 10 grand, 20 should be your goal for sure. If you're at 20, 35 to 40 should be your goal by the end of the year. We have to then work backwards from that number, okay? So if we want to be at 40 grand per month at the end of 2019, then where do we need to be at the end of the first quarter, at the end of the second quarter, at the end of the third quarter, right? And just break it down, right? So that hey, that's the target that I'm trying to hit. And then you just check in monthly to see where you're at. So if your target goal is 40,000 in revenue, then what does that equate into in terms of new patients, right? So in other words, if your average case value is $2,000, you're going to need 20 new patients a month. So it's just numbers, right? So figure out what your average case value is, which is your total revenue divided by your new patients. So that's going to give you your average case value, and then just divide that into what your goal is. And then you say, hey, I want to be at 40 grand a month. That's going to equal, then say your case value is $1,000, which is pretty typical in a chiropractic office. I need 40 new patients a month. Where am I at now? I'm at 20 new patients a month. I make $20,000 a month. So, and then say, hey, okay, at the end of first quarter, because it's hard to say, well, at the end of January, where should we be at? So in this frame of mind, I would say, let's look at quarterly. Okay, this is where we should be at in terms of these goals. So in this case, 25 new patients, 25,000 a month consistently at the end of the first quarter. So set up your target goals, set up your 12-month goal. Where do you want to be? Work backwards, and then take a look at your stats. Hey, what stats do I need to focus on? I like, in terms of obviously new patient, visits per week, your PVA is a good stat to keep track of, but you don't need to keep a ton of stats, The biggest one is new patients, right? But then you want to know what your average case value is, because if you can expand it, if you can increase your average case value, it's going to make everything so much easier for you in life. Now, how could you expand your case value or increase your case value? If your case value is, say, $1,000 and you haven't raised prices in a long time, well, inflation goes up 3% a year, right? So that means for us, roughly every 3 years, we can increase our prices by about 10%. So if your adjustment fee is $50 and you haven't raised your prices in a while, go up to 55. That's a 10% increase. And you just gave yourself a raise. If you're not doing like rehab, well, maybe you add in, say you have one core strengthening exercise that you love. Well, start adding that in to all your patients and increase your per visit charge, and as a result, your per visit collection. Maybe to increase your average case value, you're going to start recommending vitamins. An immunity vitamin protocol. I always like, if you're going to do supplements, don't sell it one by one. You got to do a protocol. You got to do like a hair, skin, and nails protocol for female patients is awesome. Or if you're going into the winter time, this is your flu barrier protocol, right? Or your immunity boosting protocol, and you have 3 supplements in there. That's one way you could increase it. You could start, have your favorite pillow out front. So your favorite pillow, and that's going to increase your overall case value. Whatever it is, just start thinking about, hey, how can I increase my case value? So when we start to think about it and ask questions, that's when we start to get answers. So that is, highly recommend that, right? Either increase your fees, look at another way that you can increase your case value, or both. I mean, hey, why not? 'Tis the season. So that is number 1, establish target goals and the stats that you're going to track. I know this seems basic, but this is where we have to start. We have to start with our end goal in mind, and then we're going to work backwards, and then we just need a few basic stats that we're going to track weekly. Look at your stats weekly. And by the way, cash flow. Sorry, I can't believe I left this out. Cash flow. I would be looking at cash flow daily. How much money did we take in and how much went out every day? If you don't want to do that, then have your bookkeeper say, hey, I want a weekly report of how much money I took in and how much money went out every week. So I want that report at the end of the day, Friday. And then they know they need to come in for 20 minutes at the end of Friday, do this stuff for you, and they just email it to you, right? Or they don't even have to come into your office. If you have an online system, they can figure it out all there. But the point being is, know your money. Get very comfortable knowing where you're at on a if not a daily, but a minimum month or weekly basis. You got to have a real good handle of what your cash flow system situation looks like. You don't want to get to the end of the month and be like, oh shit, I didn't hit my goal. No, you want to know each week, because if at the end of the week, your first week you're killing it, then I'm not saying, hey, you let your foot off the gas. You're like, hey, my target, for this month is X. Maybe I can exceed that. Or if halfway through the month you're lagging behind your goal, then it's like, okay, I need to ramp up. I need to, do more social media or whatever it is. We'll get into some of these initiatives later. But the point being is, you'll know. As opposed to not knowing, right? Not good. So that is number 1 out of the 12 initiatives to grow your practice in 2019. I'm Dr. Vince. I hope this has helped. Leave a comment. Shoot me an email, drvince@drvinceleone.com. And of course, I have an awesome 2-week trial in my group coaching, what's called DC United. Go check that out at www.levelupmypractice.com. Love you guys. Happy holidays. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.